He's a murderer.
I want
Be
to start
careful,
the chief off. I want to start the chief off with a hot one, a hot question. Just this is just be ready for this, Chief. No, listen, I just want to put you on the spot quickly.
You got it.
How do you, as a black man, because you understand this, how do you deal with the difficulty with the distrust in the police, and think about this: rap music, hip hop. A lot of these guys have an image of going against the police, but they're super popular, super famous, and a lot of people who are well educated use these guys' voices to attack the police. You might hear rap lyrics or whatever used. I'm a big fan of rap.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get you to explain, how do you deal with the overwhelming popularity of the dissenting voice and combat that and try to get people to understand, I don't care if you're black, white, or whatever. If something happens to you, it's in your best interest to call the police. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, it's in your best interest to call the police. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, Mertz, that's a great question. And so I will tell you that it's a couple of things. So one is, many of these rappers that you talked about who have had some of their, not some, but sometimes a lot of their lyrics are based on this very outward dissension and revolt against the American police or American policing system. And some of that, by the way, historically, they've got some reason to feel at times upset with the way the American policing system has treated the black community. But I'll say this, Mertz, to your point. Like you, I have seen, and I've said this before, one of the purest forms of democracy that we have in this country is when someone who needs help in the middle of the night picks up their phone to call 911, and that dispatcher on the other line, all they're caring about is they ask them a couple of questions. What is your name and what is your emergency and where are you at? And they don't ask them who you love, who you pray to, what your income is. We just go. The men and women who put on the uniform, they just respond. But I also, to your question, and I saw this here play out in Minneapolis and plays out in other cities as well, there has been a history of distrust. There has been a history of pain with policing and particularly the black community. So that is real, and you have to deal with it. But I will also say, and Lucas brought this up in his opening remarks, in the fall of 2021, we had, for the first time ever in Minneapolis, a ballot referendum that was put on the table. Should we continue to have a Minneapolis Police Department? I spoke out against that because I've also seen the black community who, in Minneapolis, particularly, are disproportionately the victims of crime. And to try to even think of dismantling or abandoning the police department was a fool's errand. And by the way, that ballot referendum, overwhelmingly, black folks shot that down. They said, right. No, two things can be true, Mertz. We can need police reform, legitimate police reform, but we still need police. And so that would be my thoughts on that, Mertz. But that's a great question.
And the reason I asked you that is because I understand this, because the majority of African Americans understand the benefit of the police, but it's the popular pressure, the popular stars, the rap, the pressure it could put on you specifically as a black man to, hey man, why you going against us? Why you joining up with the police? You know how they do us. Why you gonna go join up? Oh, you turning your back. They might call you derogatory names that you know in your heart is not your character, but they put these labels on you, and you're able to withstand that. So I'm gonna applaud you for that. But I'm just curious, on a day to day, how does
and Mertz, and I was raised. My late grandmother, Mertz and Lucas, she always told us that the world is run by those who show up. And in order to affect the change in systems, because policing is a system, in order to affect the change in those systems, you absolutely need people on the outside putting pressure on for those systems to operate in the way they should be. But you still need people on the inside to effectively work together and with a mutual goal of making it better. And so I chose to work within the inside of that system to make it better.
Hey, Chief, we only have a few minutes before we have to take a commercial break, so I may have to interrupt you. But let's continue to, since you're in the hot seat, we're going to keep you there. What do you say to all the nincompoops out there who are out to defund the police and to eliminate all prisons? I mean, even the mayor, that socialist, Comrade Mamdani, is talking about defunding and eliminating prisons. What's your reaction to that, Chief?
Yeah, Lucas, I don't think you can have any serious conversation about even doing such a thing or thinking about launching such a project if you don't use the word victims. And sadly, in this country, we have victims of crime each and every day. And to think about discarding them and that they don't have a voice anymore, that they are no longer necessary, they're no longer valued, that would be just absolute sad to do that. So we have victims. Our country's not perfect. Violence occurs in our communities, and we need men and women who will run towards the gunfire, who will show up when you are at your darkest moment to help you, to give assistance. And so that is the reality. Now, again, we can try to make it better. The police institution and the policing system is not perfect, just like the educational system isn't, just like the medical profession isn't. But let's work at it. But one thing we know for sure, whether it's in New York City or Minneapolis, people are calling 911 as we speak because they are victims of crime and they're going to need help. And until we have a better alternative, I just think that we have to deal with reality.
Hey, Chief, we only have another minute before we go to break. Sorry to put you on the spot, but have you found that the police are responding more to calls from dealing with mentally ill people who are in crisis, and that's part of the problem? We have mental illnesses on the rise. It's not properly addressed, and these problems are thrown at the police, who may not be adequately trained, or the circumstances just don't warrant the appropriate treatment or how to address that. We got less than a minute.
Lucas,
you have a quick response?
Yeah, absolutely. The mental health issues in our communities across America are the number one, or associated with all the crimes that many of our cities and communities are experiencing. And by the way, at 3:00 in the morning, those men and women in uniform, they're the only game in town often. And so they are being tasked with really trying to be the social workers of cities, and bless their hearts, but many of them are not often equipped. I didn't have a social service degree, but yes, mental health issues in our communities are a driving force to a lot of the issues cities are dealing with, whether it's narcotics, those who are experiencing homelessness, and other types of crimes. So that is a huge issue right now in our country.
Yeah, Chief, we will continue the discussion, if you don't mind, after the quick commercial break. When we return, we're going to continue this great conversation with Chief Rondo, the first black chief of police in Minneapolis. He's got a new book, Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. Come on back.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Chatting with Chief Rondo, the first black chief of police in Minneapolis, gaining national recognition for his leadership during the George Floyd crisis. He's out with a new book. You must pick it up. It's called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. To learn more about his book, check out Amazon.com, your favorite bookseller, or go wherever books are sold. You'll find it there. We'll also have links posted on our website, Chief, shakeitofflive.com. So, Chief, our producer engineer Alex Garrett had a question or comment for you. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, as I mentioned off air, I just want to give you a lot of compliments and encouragement that you did an amazing job during that time of chaos in Minnesota. I can't imagine what that whole thing had to be like, the aftermath, the riots. I thought you guys did an amazing job, and I am sorry that government tied your hands during that whole thing. But as we're seeing what's happening here in New York, what's your advice for City Council here to keep the NYPD going when it's facing threats right now?
Yeah. So thank you. By the way, Alex, thank you so much for your kind comments. I would say that, all politics, the old saying, politics are local. I think it's going to be very important. I know what it's like to deal with city councils that some members are very anti-police. But I think that, again, two things can be true at the same time, Alex. I think that as they continue to work and again, all police departments can improve. There's no perfect gem of a police department in the United States, so we can all look at ways to improve. But at the same time, again, we have to realize that they are going to be the first faces of government. They are going to be the first faces of help when our communities, our citizens need them. And so city councils need to recognize that, to realize that, and support them. And that means training. That means, we've gone through in this country, Alex, a serious, significant decline in recruitment and hiring across the nation over the past 5 years. And so making sure that the NYPD is fully staffed, that's going to be very important because, again, the call loads don't shrink. And as Lucas was mentioning earlier, they're being tasked to deal with everything. They're the social workers with badges. They're dealing with everything from, again, homelessness issues to street level narcotics dealing to assaults and abuses and all of these things. So I would say for the New York City City Council, continue to work with those police departments, the police commissioners, have the dialogue, have the important conversations, have the tough conversations. Right. But at the end of the day, try to remember that your community, the people of New York City is going to need them, and how can you work best together to make sure that those goals can be met.
Hey, Mark, Chief, you had a question? You had a question?
Yeah, Chief. Yeah, let me get to your book and, the title that includes George Floyd. During that whole situation, what was the morale of the police force? Because I'm gonna throw this in there and let you comment. There's a lot of people out there who were saying this guy was high on drugs. So, what was the morale? Because should that even be a factor? And then you have the police force as a whole having to have these officers who you dismissed, and the blue wall, all that, that concept of we got to stick beside our guys, but you don't really want to talk bad about the police force, but there is some bad actors in the police force. So what was the morale? Because you're dealing with people who are saying, on one hand, this George Floyd guy, maybe he wasn't the best person. And then as a police officer, you're coming out and you're saying he was murdered. So what was the morale of the police force?
Yeah, that is a great question, Mertz. And I will tell you that, when we look back on that summer of 2020, we were all dealing with a pandemic, which we had never experienced in 100 years. So police officers are having to deal with a different environment that way. When after he was killed, people took to the streets. It was the heat of the summer in Minneapolis. We had our violent crime rate was at serious high levels at that time. Police were overworked at that time. Matter of fact, just the summer before, I went before our city council pleading that we needed at least 500 more officers. I received 14. So there was all of these factors going into it. And then, yes, Mertz, to your point, when I came out and I terminated those officers, there was going to be some officers who were absolutely dejected because some were thinking, well, is our chief not for us? And I will tell you this here. We have, which should never be optional, we have values within the Minneapolis Police Department. And one of those values, Mertz and Lucas, is that in our care, in our custody, in our custody, in our care, meaning that we don't, your record, whether you're high, whether you're a felon, once you're in our custody, we have a duty, a sworn duty and obligation to provide for your safety and well-being after that. And so that was a violation of what occurred to him, Mr. Floyd, what occurred to him from our value standpoint and our policy standpoint.
Did you anticipate the riots, the outrage? Did you anticipate that?
Mertz, Lucas, and Alex, I will tell you this here. I knew when I saw that cell phone video, that bystander cell phone video for the first time about midnight that evening, I knew it was going to forever change our city. I knew it was going to absolutely go viral the next morning across America, but I had no idea, Lucas and Mertz, I had no idea that all 50 states would have some sort of protest in 60 countries around the world. So no, I did not know. I knew we were going to have some bad days ahead. I would have never been able to predict what would have occurred in the next 7 days after that happened.
Scary time. Were you concerned about the instability, not just of Minneapolis, but of the country as a whole? Because COVID, as you said, but also the riots in the streets, the looting, it got to be a bit weird, no?
Lucas, to your point, I absolutely was. And by the way, just for you and your listeners, make no bones about it. I knew that the entire American policing system, for me, it felt like it was on trial. I still remember a very passionate news conference that your former TBA, Pat Lynch, your union president at the time, news conference he did, flanked with several rank and file members of Minneapolis Police Department. And I remember him saying, this is not who we are. We are not that police department in Minneapolis, and our men and women out there every day trying to do their best for you. So it had a ripple effect, Lucas, all across this country. And so I knew that how I led us through that, I needed to make sure that we stayed focused, that the entire policing system was not on trial, so to speak, and just trying to make sure that at the end of the day, we lived up to and never abandoned our values.
So what was the answer, Chief? Transparency? Were you more interactive with the community? What was the secret to your success, to neutralizing what was a very unprecedented situation?
Well, Lucas, I will say this here. I wouldn't say so much of a secret, but I will say this here. I had always built up relationships during the quiet moments. So when that video came to me that midnight, when I was reaching out to community leaders, elders in the community, even activists, BLM activists, it wasn't the first time they had heard from me. I had been building those relationships in the quiet moments for years, and I will tell you that pays dividends. The last thing you ever want to do as a leader is try to call someone up at 3 a.m. in the midst of a crisis and say, "Oh, by the way, my name is Rondo. I need your help." And so that was important. And by the way, as you all saw on the news cameras, certainly in the news feed, even with all those relationships and that outreach, we still went through a lot in our city, and certainly, obviously, New York and cities across the country. But I will tell you this: had I not built those relationships, Lucas, during the quiet moments, it would have been a lot worse. We had the largest National Guard call out in our state's history during that summer than ever before, and so there was a lot going on. But I will say that if there was anything that helped me, Lucas and Mertz, it was building those relationships years before that ever occurred.
So, Chief, to elaborate on what Lucas asked you a little bit more, what's the good that came out of this whole situation, if there was any? You could probably talk about that better than anybody.
Yeah, I think the positives that came out of this was that we looked at it as a profession that we have to hold our folks accountable. We do. We have to have tough conversations even before a crisis occurs. As I said again, two things can be true at the same time. By the way, as I mentioned in the fall of 2021, people said we still need this system called policing, the American policing system. We still need that. And by the way, that was from communities who had valid grievances, historically for decades. And so that reality came front and center. And then I think as we move forward here in American policing, we have the opportunity now to create culture. And culture is a tough thing. I know both of you are fully aware of this. It's a tough thing to try to change. And there's a funny saying in policing, Lucas and Mertz, that the two things that cops hate the most are change and the way things are. Right. So you just have to keep focused at it. Put your time in and hand off the baton, and hopefully the next person coming along, each person will do their best to plant that shade tree, which they will never reap the benefits of, but it's for those future generations. And so I think we're at a time now where we can learn from that history and try to build better spaces of public safety as we move forward in collaboration with our communities.
Hey, Chief, we only have a few minutes left. Tell us about your book. Why should people pick it up? What is the message? What's the takeaway? You've got the floor. Tell us about your book.
Well, thank you for that. I think one is it's a journey. It talks about Minneapolis, its history. I also think for leaders out there, whether you're in public government or the private sector, it talks about the importance of values and how to prepare resilience in your organizations before the crisis will occur. And inevitably, you're going to experience crisis in your lifetime as a leader. And so I think there's some great lessons in that. I talk about relationships a great deal. And again, back when this occurred in 2020, there was not a sitting police chief around the country that said, "Hey, Rondo, yeah, we dealt with that back in 1975 or 85. Dust this off." There was no template for it. So hopefully we never have to experience this again in America, but hopefully in the event we have a major crisis of that proportion, there's a roadmap today and how to deal with it and how to get through it.
Amen.
Yeah.
To learn more about the book, please check out Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. Check out Amazon.com. Go to your favorite bookseller. Pick it up wherever books are sold. You can't forget the name, Chief Rondo. We'll also have links on our show's website, shakeitofflive.com. Chief, thank you so much for your service. It was a pleasure and honor having you on our program. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come
Lucas, the Mertonator, Gabby, Alex, Ashley, thank you so much. I hope to be back on your next 55 episodes.
We're going to invite you back.
Congrats.
We're going to invite you back sooner than that, Chief, and you need to run for president because you've got my vote.